Hey guys, welcome back to Terraria. We've got something to build today, a pretty big thing. But before we build, actually, check out the Yogscast store, because we've got a pretty fancy shirt. There's some graphics coming up for it now. But it's the Burb shirt. It's the only friend you'll ever need. It's the best summon in the game, probably. Citation needed, but it's pretty cool. So check it out, and that's a way to support us if you like the series. And it's a pretty cool shirt too. So what are we doing? Well, what we're going to do is we're going to construct today a grand temple, a cathedral, a tribute to all the bosses in Terraria. It's going to have a trophy platform for every single boss in the game, and we're going to load those up and keep a live tally of all the bosses that we kill. Alright, well, let's get on with the building. So the first thing I'm doing is I'm using the drill containment unit, which is a specialized mount, to hollow out a nice little trench for us to place the foundations in. Now I did this because I wasn't sure if I wanted to have a basement, so I put the foundations quite deep, and then began to use stone slabs to build up a template for the cathedral. I wanted a bell tower, but I wanted the rest of the building to look a bit like a church. And so I began by making these arches first. Now these are going to be giant stained glass windows. And after putting them down, I realized there was enough space for 5 if I extended out the foundations and added a new outer wall on the right. And I'm still using stone slab bricks here. Now I was counting down the pillars here because I had my list of bosses that we have to do, and there's 27, including the Wall of Flesh. Now the bell itself, I put down a loose framework, a loose kind of shape of a bell, out of gold bricks, because I wasn't sure what I was going to use eventually. That's just placeholder to kind of get the shape in there. And now I'm using these dynasty shingles, because I think they're beautiful, to construct the actual rooftop of the cathedral. Now I want the actual rooftop to be slightly raised where the arched windows are, but I'm leaving it flat for the moment because I want to focus on the rest of it. I wasn't sure how far to fill down with the blue shingles, so I just took them almost all the way down and left a small T gap between the arches and the shingles. Now you see this grid that I have up in the background? That is from an accessory that I'm using, which gives me, I think it's the mechanical ruler, but it gives me a more accurate grid for placing down complex things like the archway, which had to be identical. And now I'm splashing down a whole bunch of background concrete slab wall. One great way to get your building looking really cool is to use different background walls that complement each other. But since most of this build is going to be giant windows, I wanted to see how it would look with just a completely slab background, because it does complement the bricks that we use to outline the cathedral. And you see at the bottom right of the cathedral, we have that stairway plinth, because I want the actual pillar that holds the trophy that we're going to use for the Wall of Flesh to be set apart from everything else, because that marks our entry into hard mode, and so I definitely want that to stand on its own. And then with the background finally filled in, it got super dark in here, so I thought right away I'll start crafting out these windows and put some stained glass in. Now, hammering walls is a bit tricky because it doesn't always use the grid formula, which is why I didn't really use the mechanical ruler that much. And in hindsight, chiseling out these shapes probably wasn't the best way of doing it. In a lot of ways, it's easier to put the stained glass directly onto walls and let it chip away at the walls naturally. And that looks somewhat symmetrical, I think. Yeah, but as you can see, when I put the stained glass down, it looked really messy. It just didn't gel with it very well. So what I needed to do was to fill in the outline with more wall, and then put the glass on top of it so that there's a much more seamless join. And then I mirrored the shape of that along on the next window, and I kept going all the way, and I figured, hang on a sec, it'd be much easier just to fill in the background there. And just, here we go. As you can see, it goes in much easier when you, oops, I used the wrong stained glass there. It goes in much easier when you just chisel it out directly from the wall. And there we go, there's a colour to represent each of us. There's green, I guess, for the goblin. Blue, maybe for Duncan. Red for Lewis, we'll say. It's kind of pink, like his beard. And yellow for me, sure, why not? Now you see here I'm using stone slab bricks. And I'm using actuators to make them blend into the background. This keeps the idea of them being supports, but means you don't run through them and they aren't too clunky. And now I wanted to have smaller windows beneath the main stained glass windows, which is what these concrete arches are for, and these are platforms underneath them. And I thought, well, okay, let's try chiseling these out and see what they look like. I think I used plain glass here, once I got this thing looking symmetrical. There we go. But I just wasn't really happy with the shapes that was creating. And with the glass behind it, it just looked a little bit ugly, to be honest. So, back to the drawing board. But I gave it another chance. I put down actuators to make it see-through, but still, it just looked a bit shoddy. So we stripped back to our original plan. And now I'm going to cut out little arrow slits. As you can see, 2 beneath each of the stained glass windows. So it's a bit more of a defensible church, because honestly, this is more like a battle church. We're going to have trophies from all the bosses in here. And yes, trophies are 3 blocks, so it's a bit too big for these pillars, but we'll work something out. And sticking with the battle church theme, I used some dark iron grates on those windows to just make them look a bit more, rough and ready. Bam! Oh man, we're getting there, and the whole place is lit up. Now it was time to experiment with different blocks because I wanted to get a red carpet look underneath the pillars. I tried cloud and some other blocks. But in the end, nothing really worked as well as Dynasty would. Even red cloud just looked a bit, I don't know, it doesn't quite look like carpet. So here's plain wood, and I figured, yeah, you know what, Dynasty wood is the one for me, and I'm using a paintbrush here, and the deep red paint. The normal red paint just wasn't quite enough, and now it's time to put back down all of the pillars, counting exactly how many we have. And then I put the main placeholder pillar up on the plinth, but we're going to move that in a bit. Because it's a church, right? So I wanted some steps going up to this plinth. And because in Terraria it's super important that when you have buildings, it's possible to run all the way across the map. There's nothing worse than having to jump over and jump under things when you're just trying to run across the map, especially when you go at super speed, which we will do later on. So I made it so you can just run up and down these steps and it'll give you a clean line all the way through the cathedral. And then I put down these 2 altars, but again, they're just placeholder. It's time to get the hammer out and chisel off some of these sharp edges, because it does look a bit rough around the edges. And then it was time to think about the bell that we have back here. Now, I wasn't happy with the gold block, so I used some copper background wall. But again, it just looks like someone's hammered that out of like plates of copper. Wasn't what I was looking for. And I tried a whole bunch of things. I experimented with gem spark walls. Here you can see some sandstone, which actually does look kind of cool, but again, it's bricks. And bells typically aren't made of bricks. Now here's an idea. I've got gem spark walls behind the sandstone bricks, and even though it looks like a bit bricky, I think it's of the perfect color and hue, and it has that kind of light yellow sheen. Looks enough like a bell to me. Now it's time to add some floors so that you can climb up this bell tower, and it might be that we put some NPCs in here in the future. So we're just going to put some Dynasty wood floors in for the time being and make sure there's enough room in between the floors to climb up that rope and not get stuck. And let's put a few more arrow slit walls in there. Looking good. Now I tried them without the middle cut out, but it didn't quite look right, so I cut the middle back out to keep in theme with the rest of the church. And there we go. It's time to add some more of these dark iron fences because I think they look great as extra decoration around the edge of the church. And with that in mind, I wanted to mess with the roof a bit as well. I tried some platforms underneath the arrow slits. I made sure that you can fly out of here with a mount, because that's super important. And then, like we said earlier on in the video, I wanted to raise the dynasty shingles above the windows and add some of these spikes because they look very gothic and very kind of churchy. Looking good. I also added some banners underneath the stained glass window. Moved the altars so that we could fit a pillar in between them, and that I think is probably going to be the perfect spot for the Wall of Flesh trophy. But the platforms didn't look very cool, so I removed those. And there we go, there's a sign for the boss that we've killed. It's the only one we've killed so far, but it is the Eye of Cthulhu. Unfortunately, there's only 2x2 block space above each of these pillars, so really all we can really fit in there is a sign. But that's enough. We'll decorate the rest of the church with the trophies that we get. And there we go, we're pretty much finished. Now there's a whole lot more that can go on in this cathedral, and over time we'll be changing it, decorating it, adding space for other NPCs, making everything work. But for now, we're done. I'll see you next episode for some more Terraria. It's going to get thick and fast, and we're going to start chopping off these bosses' heads left, right, and center. So stay tuned for that. I've been Stin. I hope you enjoyed this build. I hope it's given you some ideas, and it's filled you in on what I've done behind the scenes in between the episodes. I'm going to do some more of these too, but the best thing is, in the comments section, let me know what you want to see more of or less of. Also, tips, ideas, maybe even mods that we haven't used. Anything goes. But till next time, guys, thanks a lot. Take care. Hit like, subscribe, ding that bell for notifications, and I'll see you for some more Terraria. Take care.